Discover the world of brother sewing and craft. It's so easy with our feature-packed machines designed to express your creative spirit and style.
Today on Show Me How, Jackie Van Sale from Seedpod Studios shows us how to create decorative blocks using photos or image collections from your travels. She shows us how to use a variety of craft materials to create these decorative blocks, as well as how to group the blocks together to create a larger art piece. Gloria then gets stuck in and creates her very own work of art.
Hello and welcome. I'm Gloria Bastos and this is Show Me How. In the studio with me today is Jackie Van Sale of the Seedpod Studio, and we're going to be playing with a variety of craft materials. We're going to be using paint, paper, stamps, ink, and even more, and we're going to use them to create texturized and decorative art similar to this one. So good to have you in the studio, Jackie.
Thanks for having me.
So you always bring something new and something inspired, and where do you find your inspiration?
Well, owning the studio, we always need to come up with new and different ideas.
Yes.
I think specifically in the South African market, we need to do something new and different all the time. So I use a lot of online inspiration, and also we brainstorm in the studio amongst ourselves. What would be nice? What do we have lying around that we could use in a new and different way?
Yes, you also travel quite a lot, don't you?
Yes, so I see a lot of trends, especially in the States and that sort of thing, and we try to bring them here, give them a bit of a local flair.
Absolutely. Okay, so we are making decorative blocks today.
Yes.
So what would one use this kind of thing for?
Well, basically, when you look at a lot of little blocks en masse, they actually form quite a nice big picture.
True.
So basically, we came up with an idea of what to do with little bits of leftover books of bits of paper, things like, especially with traveling as well, you know, you often keep your little stubs or little cards or tickets to theatre that you've been to or something like that. And what do you do with them? They just end up in a box or in a packet. So it's always a nice idea to try to incorporate that kind of thing, personalize it, but you don't want to put it in an album or somewhere.
True.
You might want to keep it out. So it's just a way of having fun with also, and also to be creative with it.
Yes, I can actually see this sort of mixed up with photographs. If you're going to put your photos of your travels on the wall, then use some of the blocks as well. It could actually
in between.
Add an interesting flair.
Definitely.
Okay, so we're going to be making this.
That's
what is our
correct.
first step?
So basically, we've got these little blocks of wood over here. I've already cut out some bits of paper that we're going to apply. And the wood, you can use it as it is. You don't have to prime it. I mean, you can prime it. You could put a coat of paint or something on it, but we've used it just plain and it works absolutely fine.
But you know what? Everybody likes the natural color of wood.
Yes.
And I think once upon a time we used to cover everything up with paint, but nowadays natural is great.
Yes, you're right.
So, good. So you're basically using random words, eh? There's no meaning to this?
There's no meaning to this specifically, but I think, again, you can get creative. I mean, why not take a passage from your favorite book, photocopy it and have that so that it's in the background. We end up covering quite a lot of the words in that, so you don't get to keep a lot of it, depending on how you put it on. But you'll see it ends up being quite covered as well.
Good.
So we just use a gel medium, which you can get at any art stockist.
Yes. And do you use that as your glue?
As the glue, and it also works quite nicely as a sealer as well.
I see.
And you can put it on quite thickly.
Yes, I see. You're being quite generous with that.
And you put it onto both surfaces.
Okay. And how long does the gel medium take to dry?
Not long, actually. And if you're working at home and you need to speed up the process, you can actually use a hairdryer as well.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. On a cool setting or a hot setting?
Doesn't really matter. Not obviously right on top of it.
Okay.
So basically...
So that would be our first layer and our background, really. And that dries clear, I assume, because you're just putting it on quite liberally.
That's right.
Okay, lovely.
And then what I always like to do with this type of thing is you can put a little bit of extra on, and just using your finger to actually get out any of the air bubbles and extra bits of glue that sort of pop out the side.
Yes. Okay. And I suppose if you really want a very neat finish, then you could put wording on the sides as well, or paint, as we've already discussed.
You could, but like you said, if you actually put these up all together on the wall, you're not really going to see those edges.
That's true.
So...
Okay. So it looks like a mess, but it looks like a fun mess, nevertheless. I love using my fingers. When I'm doing crafts as well, I often use my fingers.
Yeah, it is a tactile thing. So
true.
the messier you can get. Not at nursery school anymore, so we don't get to play with the mud and the everything else, so we have to
You're
do
quite
it.
right.
Yeah. So once that is dried,
And how long did you say that will take? Not long.
not long, no, I mean if you...
Half an hour?
Half an hour probably,
Okay.
even less, depending on, I think, the weather.
And it's got a lovely sheen to it from the texture medium, gel medium.
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay.
So then we start to layer, so depending on what you're doing.
Okay.
This will be the next layer that we put on.
Okay, so what you've done here is you've brought a selection of pictures. And
Yes.
again, I presume you can take them from magazines or...
From magazines, from postcards, from books, anything. And you can
Yes.
color photostat them. You can also look online. There's a lot of images that are available for use online.
Yes.
And you can do that as well.
I suppose we just have to be careful with copyright because there are pictures that have copyright and there are others that don't. So
That's correct.
we must always be careful not to infringe
A lot of the
copyright.
pictures that you can buy online will specifically say that you can use them for this kind of
Okay, fantastic.
art medium.
Good. And again, just a few
it.
strokes of the gel medium.
Correct?
I can't believe how simple it is. I mean, it goes quick.
Yeah, and it is very simple, to be honest. And then again, once that's dry,
Again, about half an hour or so, wouldn't it
exactly.
be? All right, lovely.
And then you're left with it like this. You can't do too much when it's wet, especially adding paints and inks.
Yes.
So you do need to let it dry nicely.
Okay,
Then what we can
fabulous.
do to dirty it up a little bit, you can see
Yes.
we've dirtied it up on the edges, is we use a technique that I call dry brushing.
Okay.
And it's basically is that you take a dry brush,
Uh-huh.
dip it in some paint, whatever color you like. I'm just going to use a brown to give it a more sort of stained look.
All right.
Then you take a lot of the paint off of the brush
Yes.
so that there's actually not a lot of wet paint left on the brush and
Right.
the brush is still dry. And then you really
Oh,
just,
yes. softening the
softening
edges
the
a little
edges,
bit.
yeah.
Okay.
so depending on what color. And then again, you take your finger and you can just rub it
Smudge
in
it
if it's
a
a little
little
bit
bit and-
darker or
Yeah.
whatever it is you
Okay.
like.
And then you've also sort of just dropped some ink blobs onto it as well.
Yes, that's actually quite a lot of fun. So these are the alcohol inks.
Okay.
And you literally drop them on, turn it around,
Let it
mix
flow a
them
little
together,
bit.
let it flow a little bit and see what happens.
Yes. And the paint that you used to do the edges, was that just an acrylic
yes,
paint?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You can use all sorts of things. You can even use tea bags, that sort of color of rooibos. You can take that and you can
Yes.
use it. You can do really anything.
Okay, excellent. So now you're going to just drop alcohol ink, but could
That's
it be any
correct.
other ink? Is alcohol the best one?
Yeah, I would say
Okay.
so. I haven't tried it with anything else, to be honest. So
All
this
right.
is just what we use.
So it looks quite dark, but I suppose once it dries, it will dry a little bit lighter, won't it?
Yeah, and then also you can move it, and then you can see
Yes.
that it sort of lightens.
Yes, yes.
You can also take a bit of your paper towel if you want to, and then kind of
Just smudge it up a little bit.
lighten it up a bit like that.
So there's actually no right or wrong way. You just
Not
do
at
what
all.
appeals to you. And I see in some of the examples that you brought with you, you've embellished using some metal embellishments as well.
Correct. So once you've done your final thing and you think it maybe needs a bit of a touch of bling or a bit of a touch of something else, you can then add it on afterwards.
I suppose you could use washi tape as well,
Of course, yeah.
and
Yeah, I think
stamps and anything like that. So Jackie, you mentioned that you can blend some of the ink colors as well. How would you do that?
Well, these are happy accidents that sometimes happen actually while you're busy. So we could just get a drop.
Oh,
Oh,
wow. Or a
see?
lot of drops. Okay, so what happens in a case like that?
Well, definitely paper towel.
Yes. But you can actually recover from that. Look at
Yes, you
that.
can.
Okay. Because I'm typically one of those people who would do exactly what you've just done. So,
So ideally,
just a drop.
just a drop. And then you
Okay.
can run it down so that you get some of the lighter color coming through.
Yes.
And then you can actually drop another bit on.
Okay. So you're not actually blending it off the
No.
wood, you're blending it as you're dropping it.
Yes. And there you can see a nice sort of blend of the
Yes.
green and the blue coming
Yes,
through
yes.
together.
But you know what you said about happy accidents, that's often what crafts are all about. As you're doing something, you intend it to come out a certain way, but it happens to come out differently, and that's the beauty. There's no right or wrong way of doing
No,
it.
there isn't, and you can never replicate it, unfortunately.
That's true. But you don't really want to. I mean, art is unique. You don't want to.
So there we've got a really bright, vibrant green that you got from this sort of avo mixing with the
Yes,
teal.
yes.
And then the inks, you need to leave them to dry. Being oil-based, they'll take a little bit longer.
But how long?
Again, probably half an hour or so. I wouldn't
Good.
worry
Everything
too
is
much.
quick.
Yeah.
Lovely. And then we could embellish in different ways, couldn't we?
You can, and I think a final step for this would be to varnish it.
Okay.
So you
to
put a
seal it.
sealer on just to protect it,
Yes.
and then embellish it. You could stick any number of different little things on top. Again, little mementos maybe, things that you've
Yes.
taken, coins from your travels.
That's a good idea. I
Things like that. Or
Yes.
just little ceramic objects or bits of old jewelry that you've got lying around or things that you found and bought.
Yes, good idea. And you've brought quite a selection of little embellishments, and I'm sure that we can buy these quite easily from a craft shop, can't we?
Definitely.
So again, we just use presumably a bit of glue or something to actually to stick this on.
Exactly. Just
And
a little bit of a silicone-based glue, and you could stick it on in the corners. You could.
I like the
Play
idea.
around.
I like the idea of time because
Yes.
if we, it's at a point in time where we've travelled or whatever, so that could actually be quite nice.
Yes, that would
to
work
add
well.
on to that.
Yes.
So you've brought a variety of different things here, and I see in some of them you've just, again, look at these happy accidents here. They look lovely. And then some you've been a lot more formal with the embellishments, but the ink is really random.
It is. It's very random, and I think that's the whole reason behind it, is to make it look like a blotch, which is what
Absolutely.
happens when you drop
Yes,
it.
yes. And I'm sure there are lots of other techniques that we can explore.
There are.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm impressed by what we've made so far, and I can't wait to explore other fascinating techniques right after the break.
Brother, Japanese excellence in the sewing industry for over 100 years. Brother, Japanese excellence in the sewing industry for over 100 years.
We've been exploring the diversity and the freedom of mixed media art, and we're now going to look at some other art pieces that Jackie's created in her studio. Jackie, you've brought us such interesting variety. Talk through some of them, please.
Well, this is basically using a lot of the techniques that we've been through already.
Yes.
And what as I said, when they're in small blocks like this, they're often nice to group together to create a bigger visual impact.
Uh-huh.
So I like to do it potentially, I think, by color for this sort of range, and you could look
Okay.
at doing something like that, which is quite
Yes.
effective, and then
Uh-huh.
maybe move the warmer colors
That's a good idea.
to there.
Okay.
So this is just giving you an idea of how you would perhaps group it on a larger scale. Of course, if you were doing a wool where you had lots of them, you could even put them all together. There's no harm. You've got the bits of red over here, which
True.
you pick up quite nicely. So you can really do it any which way you like,
Yes.
to create quite a nice visual impact.
And I suppose if you're a very symmetrical person, you're going to make them very square, and if you sort of more unstructured, then you're going to group
Yes,
them in an unstructured
randomly.
manner. Yes.
And put other things in between. I mean, why not? As you said, the photographs,
Yes.
that sort of thing. Place them slightly off center, have bigger gaps also to create interest. You could spread them out like that. You could really do quite a lot with just these small little blocks.
Yes.
What's nice is that you also get to finish a block in a smaller amount of time, so you can just keep adding to the collection as you
True.
go.
Absolutely. I love that. I really love the compilation of all of these little blocks together. But these are fascinating. So tell me about these.
Again, very similar techniques. We've just gone a lot heavier into the collaging aspect of it. So
Okay.
here you can see there's a lot of different papers that we've used. In the backgrounds, we've used washi tape, bits of music, bits of
Yes.
book again, other bits of paper, cut out words, and then you just layer those on top of each other until
I
you
see.
create the desired background that you would like.
Okay. And you've also had some happy accidents on this one.
Yes,
And
lots of happy accidents.
Yes, and it actually adds interest. But what about this here? Did you trace this or draw it freehand or?
So these we drew. Obviously, it depends on your artistic capability.
Yes.
Again, I mean, tracing with carbon paper is wonderful. So I always ask our students to do that if they're feeling a bit
Yes.
insecure about actually having to draw it themselves.
Of course.
And then, so painting on top of it, again, using part of the background actually as part of the dress.
Yes, so allowing it to come through
Allowing
to
it
give
to
you
come
dimension.
through. There's so many different options that you could do.
Yes.
And then again, beautiful little embellishments that you can add on, just to give it a little bit more interest, some 3D
Yes, a
interest.
little bit of sparkle. I love that one. And this also is a little bit reminiscent of art journaling. In fact, what we're doing is a bit reminiscent of art journaling.
It is, and then taking a book, and you could actually, alter the pages within the book itself. Something like this, where you could actually then collage on top of that, paint on top of that.
Some people would say that that is sacrilege, because you shouldn't really be doing that to books, or should you?
Well, I think there's a lot of old books lying around, and that people are looking at to upcycle all sorts of things at the moment. So you can use them in multiple different ways.
Yes, and rather than destroy them, embellish them.
Yes, or just leave them to get dusty on a pile.
Absolutely. And this one, again, paper, paint techniques, a little bit of ceramic embellishment.
Exactly, very similar. Again, the inks here you can see, and they actually spill over onto the sides.
Yes,
and give
I've
a little bit of
noticed that.
interest there as well.
Yes.
And here we've taken paint and actually put it all over the front of it, just to dull down the imagery. Sometimes it's a little bit bright. You don't want it to take over what you're actually painting.
True.
But all of those techniques we'll actually go through, and we'll see how we can do it.
I can't wait. Well, I still find it amazing to see how creative people can transform ordinary pieces into a work of art. When we come back, we'll try out other techniques to add to our mixed media art blocks.
Brother, Japanese excellence in the sewing industry for over 100 years. Brother, Japanese excellence in the sewing industry for over 100 years.
Today's projects are all about mixed media art and the freedom of incorporating just about anything that inspires us to be creative. We've already made this block, and now we're going to explore different materials and different techniques. So, Jackie, what are we doing next?
So we're going to add to this collection.
Yes.
And we're going to just do this simple block over here.
Okay.
Which doesn't use any of the papers as we previously used. More paint technique and stamping.
Good. All right, and it seems to take such a little amount of paint that you can really use anything that you've got lying around at home.
Definitely. Lots of good uses here to finish off all your leftover stuff.
Good. Okay, acrylic paint you said earlier.
Acrylic. So we'll start with the base color.
Yes.
I always find that using a sponge brush gives a nice even coat, and broad brush strokes help with that effect.
Okay, good. And I'm going to be doing this project.
Yes, I think so.
I love getting my hands dirty, so I'm delighted. Okay, do you think we need 1 or 2 coats, or?
We'll see as you put it on. You'll just do, I think, 2 coats.
Okay.
Just as you layer it on.
And this paint also dries fairly quickly, doesn't it?
Again, yeah, very quickly. Again, a hairdryer comes in very handy if you want to speed up the process.
So could I do a second layer now, or would I wait for it to dry?
You could do another layer right now.
Okay, perfect. I love blues and greens and these sort of colors that are reminiscent of the sea and the sky. I love outdoors, so perfect for me.
Good.
Okay.
Great.
Good.
So that needs to dry off before we start to add our sort of background texture, giving it a little bit more life.
Okay.
Now we're going to take a darker teal just to create some sort of a texture around the edges so that it's not as flat looking.
And are we going to use a sponge brush again?
No. So for this, what I like to do is to take a piece of paper towel and scrunch it quite randomly.
Yes.
And then you're literally going to put it in and try to create your little dappled effect around the side.
Let's see how that works out.
If you have a sea sponge, you can do that with a sponge too, but they're quite difficult to get a hold of nowadays.
And I suppose the more scrunched up your paper is, the better.
The more effect. And you just keep going over the same areas.
Okay.
So you want to blot it out so that it's quite thin.
So I'm going to
fold it to a new section.
Try and lift some of this, eh?
Correct. And spread it out, yeah.
There you go.
Yes, that's more of what we're looking for.
And lift some of it again?
Yes, just to create more sort of, that's correct, more of a texture. Perfect.
Is that it?
Yes.
We'll leave it to dry now.
That's it.
Quite nice and quite easy.
Yes, very easy.
Okay, perfect.
So here, now the next step is basically to play around with our happy mess over here, which is the alcohol inks.
Let's see if I can duplicate what you did
earlier.
earlier.
So don't squeeze too hard.
Okay.
But basically you want to create a random sort of splotches wherever you can, just to cover up some of the blank space.
I'm going to try to, oops, now I can see why you had that happy accident earlier. It actually just flows very easily. There you go. Do I let it run?
You can, but in this instance, I think we're going more for the blobs.
Okay.
Maybe add a bit of a red.
Onto that?
Yep, slightly off.
Okay. And I think
Yeah.
the
So
green...
you add them together so that they just overlap slightly. So
I
you still
see.
get bits that have their own color,
Yes.
and then you have overlapping bits, so not sort of right on top of each other.
Okay.
Perfect.
And then do we lift it in any way, or we just allow it to dry?
It
or-
is looking a little bit solid in color, so we can take your paper towel and just slightly blot it.
Oh yeah, look at that. It actually lifts the color straight away.
Yes.
So this alcohol ink, if we get it onto clothes, it's going to stain, am I right?
It is, because it is oil-based.
Okay, so we need to be careful about that. Okay,
Perfect.
happy mess.
Yep.
Right, and then if I look at our block, you had some stamping
Yes, correct. So we're going to do some stamping.
with a normal rubber stamp or what?
Yes, rubber stamps are best, and it's best if it does have a wooden backing because it allows you to be more precise in terms of where you want
I
to actually
see.
put your stamp. You get a lot of stamps nowadays that are just actually the rubber mat,
I see.
but the wooden block helps a lot. If you
Okay.
do have stamps that are just on a rubber mat, you could just grab one of these pieces of wood and stick it on.
Yes, okay, just to give you that pressure point.
Correct.
Okay,
So we've got our stamp pad and the stamp,
okay,
and you really just need to get it on the stamp, whichever sort of part of the design that you're going to use.
all right. And in this case, you've gone for a script, but really you could go with pictures, you could do anything that you like, really.
So once you're sure that you've got your ink on, and you can check at the actual stamp to see where the ink is on, then you're going to do the honors
Yes,
with a steady hand, because you don't want the stamp to move. You're going to just press it down.
otherwise you're going to get a shadow, I
and
suppose.
just see
eh?
where the actual stamp is.
Okay, let's see how that comes out. And then just apply even pressure.
That's it.
Is that enough?
Should be.
And if it isn't?
We can just do it again.
Okay. It wasn't enough pressure.
No.
So we got a little bit of a very faint kind of stamp.
We have, but you still got a lot of detail happening over there. And now again, what we can do is let's perhaps then fill up the blank space with some of the silver foil.
Good idea. Okay. And how do we stick the silver foil down?
It's pretty easy. We actually just use a Pritt glue
Okay.
where you want the foil to stick. You just take the foil, put it on, and it'll adhere to those
okay,
areas.
I thought we would need a fancy glue, a tacky
No.
glue or something like
No,
that.
no.
So
Pritt
any
works
glue
perfectly,
stick. Okay.
yes.
Good. All right. Well, I like that detail of the stamping there. So I'm going to add a little bit onto there and perhaps a little bit onto there
There we go.
and maybe there.
On the corner, great.
Yeah. Just to balance it off a little bit.
So now
All right.
literally you just can tear it. You can see it's quite fine.
Yes. And you get this in a gold leaf as well, don't you?
You do.
And is this it? Just
That's it.
put it on and peel it off.
Yep.
My fingers are full of glue. That's the only thing now. Okay, and some there. It gives such a nice effect, doesn't it?
And you can actually just keep going on top. Yeah. Pat
Tapping it
down.
and tapping it. Okay.
And then what we can do is perhaps wait for this to dry
Yeah.
and then come back with the
Let me just wipe my
sort
fingers.
of peel away the bits that aren't meant to be there.
Okay, and if we wanted to add other bits and pieces now, what would we do?
Embellishments.
Yeah.
You can literally also get some glue and stick them on.
Uh-huh.
I would varnish it first, as I said, embellishments being
Yes.
sort of the very last step that you use.
Okay.
And then it's done.
It's actually so simple, and although they're quite different, it doesn't really matter.
No, and again, as I said, when arranging them, as long as you've got your color schemes
Yes.
going, you can put it in with anything and it creates a nice effect.
And what you mentioned earlier as well is, although those are all the cool colors, you've replicated some of those colors onto the yellow here. So you could always
Combine.
and then go from this into warm colors.
Exactly.
And I also like the idea of going for something quite big. So trying these techniques on a bigger piece of wood or on a flat canvas or anything like that.
Exactly, and if
So-
you go for something bigger like that, that's when you have the opportunity to perhaps use photographs that you've taken,
Yes.
add people into the picture. It doesn't only just have to be a
Because you get those lovely mediums where you can actually transfer the photograph onto the wood and the wood still comes through, but your photograph is there.
correct.
Okay, in this one here, you've also used a little bit of the silver foil, some drawing.
Yes.
Okay.
So just using some gel pens and art fine liners, things like that, you can really draw it up, add any little bits of things that you want to put on.
And I love this one as well. I love the little silver bit, and then
The
little bit
sayings,
of
yeah.
scribbling on as well. And I suppose what we could do with the block that we've made is just add some embellishments and make it quite unique and different.
Exactly.
So I love this one, and it goes so nicely with the foil that we've already used.
Beautiful. That looks great.
I've had a lot of fun, and I think anybody could do this. So it's great. Thank you
Good.
so much. What I've enjoyed most about today's project is the total freedom to include materials and ideas that appeal exclusively to me. Why don't you give it a try? You'll probably find that you have most of the materials that you need, but if not, just pop into your local craft shop and then get started using the ideas and instructions on our website. It's a whole lot of fun and really easier than you imagine. Until next time, take care.
For a detailed list of all the materials and instructions, visit our website on thehomechannel.co.za. This week's Crafter of the Week goes to Enola Thomas, who sent us a picture of a Gatsby lady created with threaded embroidery, beads, and small embellishments. You could also be featured as our Crafter of the Week by sending us pictures of your projects. You stand a chance of winning a hands-on workshop at a HobbyX show near you. Simply log on to our website or send us an email at info@thehomechannel.co.za. Remember to keep calm and craft with us.
Discover the world of brother sewing and craft. It's so easy with our feature pack machines designed to express your creative spirit and style.
Brother!